wanted to make sure I felt like I was earning my seat at the table and fighting the nepotism cloud that I feel like always hangs over those in family businesses.
We always say it's a journey, not an event, because it's so many things over time.
Yeah, I would say it's been a journey for me in the sense that only recently have I been mature enough to say, okay, this is a hill I'm not going to die on.
Hey there, and welcome to Your Next Gen Friend, a successor's guide to business transition, a podcast for figuring out what's next in or beyond your family business. I'm Andrea Carpenter, transition strategist and second gen. Around here, we talk about the real stuff, family dynamics, identity, leadership, wealth, and how to define success on your own terms. Here's to finding your own way forward. I'm so glad you're here.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Your Next Gen Friend. I'm super excited to be here today with Ashley Dimond. I first heard her speak at a Bailey Center for Family Enterprise event at the University of Denver. And I saw her speaking and I was like, I would love to have her on this podcast. So this is a really fun guest to have. Ashley is a principal at Kopfer Capital Management, the Dimond family office, where she oversees the real estate, venture, and private equity investments and manages the Dimond Family Foundation. Her career spans hospitality, tech, and private equity. She's also a new mom, similar to me, deeply engaged in philanthropy and passionate about helping families make intentional long-term decisions around business and legacy. So Ashley, so glad you're here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, let's just start with a little bit about who is Ashley.
So I was born and raised in Denver, Colorado. My family is in the hospitality space. So college, for me looked like the Cornell Hotel School, which I absolutely loved. I think it was one of the more formative experiences in my life. After Cornell, I ended up working at Burger King corporate down in Miami. That wasn't quite the right opportunity for me. So I decided to look elsewhere. And again, back to Cornell, it was, it's always been this place I look to for any big life change. So reached out to a couple Cornell friends, and that's what brought me to Uber. Spent 4 years at Uber, which were absolutely an amazing time. Through Uber Friends is how I met my husband. And we got married in 2022. And as you mentioned, Andrea, I am a new mom. So outside of work, I spend basically all my other time being a mom. As well as my husband and I really like watching sports. So Denver sports, he's from New England. So I guess I'm reluctantly also a New England fan. And I really enjoy cooking. So that's a little bit about me.
Nice. Well, it hasn't been a bad fall for Denver sports.
No, it has not at all.
Been having a good time. Okay, so interesting that you started by sharing that you went to kind of hospitality and into Cornell, because that was kind of the family business. So when you think about growing up, did you know you wanted to go into hospitality? Is that something you were kind of expected to do? What kind of brought you down that path?
Yeah, I would say it was more of an expectation, but not discussed all that often in our house growing up. It was more of a subtle, this would be a great thing for you guys to take over one day. That being said, my sister and I have a sister who's 4.5 years younger than me. We were immersed in the business as soon as we were born. So we spent, all of our summer breaks working in the office, whether that was stuffing envelopes or passing out mail, to going to general managers conferences after soccer games. So the immersion in the business felt very normal, but I wouldn't say a career in hospitality was exactly what I was looking for. However, when I was looking at colleges, Cornell's hotel school was ticking a lot of boxes for me in the sense that I saw opportunities in the hospitality space outside of working in my family's business. And I think that was really inspiring and kind of the eye-opening moment of, okay, this is a space that I know a lot about, and I can do something that's not directly related to my family's business. So ironically, I made a full circle moment and came back, but
Yeah. And was there ever an expectation that you would come back?
I think there was an expectation. It wasn't forced on my sister and I.
Mm-hmm.
I think the parents actually did a pretty good job with that in not forcing it, but I do think there was a general expectation.
Yeah. So you went to Burger King, that didn't feel quite right. Went to Uber, spent 4 years there. What was kind of the thing that led you back into the family enterprise?
So I had been at Uber for a little over 4 years, and I realized, this company's changing a lot. I learned a lot from my colleagues, my friends at Uber, but I was starting to realize I was ready to make a change, and that change felt like going to my family business. The big disclaimer I'll make there, though, is I wanted to do something else in between, and business school felt like a really great opportunity. I focused my business school search and goals on three main priorities. So I really wanted to build upon a lot of the hard skills that I had learned in my undergrad, at my first job at Burger King, and then at Uber. I wanted to kind of round out some of my soft skills that I didn't feel like I got through on the job training. Mm-hmm. And then the last bucket was more so personal for me, but wanted to make sure I felt like I was earning my seat at the table and fighting the nepotism cloud that I feel like always hangs over those in family businesses, operating companies, family offices, whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. So those were the three things that I knew I needed to accomplish by going to business school. And by accomplishing those three things, I felt like I would be ready to join my family business.
Yeah. And what did that process look like to kind of come into the family business? Was there a position that they always thought you might come into, or how did you sort of land where you first landed in the business?
Yeah, it was kind of a funny process. We have yearly family meetings, and this was the biggest discussion point in the family meeting in 2021 before I ended up joining the operating company. Mm-hmm. We talked a lot about, what does my title look like? Because I wanted something that wasn't overly inflated, despite the fact that I did at that point have an MBA, had an undergrad. I was well qualified for positions, but I didn't, we didn't want to put too much emphasis on the fact that I was coming into the company. So we ended up with director of strategy. And I think it was actually a really great title because it pulled on a lot of the experiences I had as chief of staff at Uber. And I ended up creating this kind of rotational program for myself in which I spent anywhere from 2 to 8 weeks in different departments within our management company's corporate office. So I think it was a great middle ground of, it was a position that I was well suited for and could provide a lot of valuable experience towards, but it wasn't so inflated or so kind of loosey-goosey that it felt they were just giving this to the CEO's daughter.
Yeah. And you also got a chance to really go into every single department at the company, which I'm sure was a great learning experience too.
It was hugely a great learning experience, but it was also the best way for me to get to know each person and each team. And I think that built a lot of camaraderie with everyone. So at first, maybe it was my name that kind of got me in the door, but I do think towards the end of my experience with each group and with each team, they kind of saw the value that I was bringing and got to know me more intimately.
And I love that you mentioned the family meetings, because as families and enterprises start to get bigger, you start to see how important staying on the same page and communicating about what everyone is thinking about and what feels important and how everyone is feeling. It sounds like you used to do an annual family meeting. Do you still do an annual family meeting, or has that shifted since you're working in the business and presumably more closely tied into things now?
We still do an annual family meeting. The content has changed a little bit now that my sister and I are both in the enterprise and working more closely with everything. So previously we used to spend a day getting updated on general business updates. We've now kind of shifted that to focus more on let's use this as a strategy planning session for our family. My husband is now included on some of the educational topics. And Sonia's eventual partner will also begin to be included. But it's been a really great tool for our family. I would say we're a pretty close family, but when you're over the dinner table, you're not really wanting to have some of these deep conversations that do get heated, that do get emotional. And this time gives everybody an outlet to have those discussions. And I think everyone goes into these family meetings with a clear head, really great intentions. And that helps have a smooth conversation.
Yeah.
Again, not to say that they don't get heated and emotional, because they absolutely do. But we all go in with really great intentions, and it's been such a tool for our family.
Yeah. And do you have outside facilitators do those meetings?
We do.
Yeah.
We do. We have 2 outside facilitators that have been amazing. They've been with our family for 10 years now, and they've seen us grow, which I think has been a huge benefit of the tools and services they're able to provide for us. So yeah, we really enjoy it.
The outside perspective can be really helpful, I find, especially as a rising gen, to they can catch things or nuance in terms of like, oh, hey, someone's maybe trying to phrase something that's not coming across maybe exactly the way they mean, or let's pause, let's dig into that a little bit more. I think that is a great thing. So
I totally agree.
Yeah. Okay. So your family is obviously, there's a few entities. There's the foundation, there's the family office itself, and then there's the operating company. Could you just, for listeners who may not be familiar about some of the distinctions between these entities, do you mind giving a super high level overview of that?
Absolutely. So I'll speak directly to our business landscape. So my parents started Stonebridge Companies in 1991. It started out as a hotel ownership, management, and development company, primarily Hilton and Marriott flags all across the U.S. In 2022, we decided we wanted to have a capitalization event and brought in 2 external private equity firms. At this time, we decided to split the business formally. So we kept Stonebridge as the operating company, and it just manages the hotels. So it manages not only the hotels that we own, but their mandate was to grow that management side of the business. On the family office side, we retained all of the ownership and real estate of the hotels, as well as decided to invest in a lot of non-real estate assets. So private equity, venture, kind of anything else really. And then the third arm is our foundation, which is supported by our family. We primarily give to children's causes and education, and then education primarily with institutions and groups that are kind of near and dear to us. So all of our respective alma maters, as well as we're originally Indian. My grandfather went to a primary school in India, and we've been kind of involved in that school for a long time. So those are the 3 buckets. I'm happy to dive into either one of them.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe like your role, because it's different hats that you're wearing at different times. So what are your roles inside each one?
Absolutely. So within Stonebridge, I wear no hat anymore. My dad is the chairman of the board, but the team is run by a really great CEO. Like I mentioned, their mandate is to grow the management side of the business, and they're doing such an amazing job with that. So my role within Stonebridge is to applaud them when they're doing all these great things. Within the family office, so Copford, as you mentioned, I'm a principal. It's kind of a catch-all title, to be honest. I do everything from sit on our investment committee to, head of HR and a lot of the operations work. I work really closely with our finance team. So asset allocation, asset management. And then within our family office, we also have a hotel development team. So I work closely with the development team on different projects that are upcoming and kind of project managing the the different aspects of it. So touch a little bit of everything. I don't get super, super deep into anything, but, jack of all trades.
And you said your sister has recently joined in working too. So where's she kind of sitting, and do you guys work closely together?
Yeah, my sister joined in 2023, I believe. Her talent and forte is really on the design side of things. That's kind of where her passion is and where she's really good at. So she sits mostly with our hotel development team, working on a lot of design projects, branding projects, things like that. So that's her expertise. I absolutely let her run with that. That's somewhere I don't try to meddle. But we work really closely on a lot of the kind of broader strategic initiatives for the family office. We collaborate on a lot of stuff. We kind of use each other as soundboards for a lot of things. So I think it works. It works well for us.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm sure it will continue to evolve, right? And you said your dad's chairman of the board now and one of the entities. Kind of what is his role in the family office and those other pieces?
So I'm sure many listeners who have fathers that they work with can probably resonate with this, but my dad is still very, 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 very involved in the family office. And I honestly, at this point, wouldn't have it any other way. I think my sister and I really do look to his expertise in the real estate space specifically. And we're still learning an immense amount from him. So he's there every day. He will continue to be there every day. I think sometimes he does mention he wants to slow down, but my sister and I kind of look at each other like, we'll see that when it happens. But he's very involved. My mom is also pretty involved still as well. When they started Stonebridge back in 1991, she was an integral part of the puzzle. She has decided, and I would say the last couple decades, to focus more on initiatives that are important to her. So office culture, planning things that are focused around our employees, retention, things like that. But we're all in the office together, which is a pretty fun experience.
Yeah, that is fun. And it's so funny you mentioned dad slowing down. My dad, when he kind of exited his business, he said, I'm going on indefinite sabbatical. So I was like, okay, you're just going to keep working in different ways. Wouldn't have it any other way, right? Because they have to feel fulfilled. And I think that's something when people think of succession planning, they think it's this moment where like their parents or the current owners have to just like stop doing things and like suddenly they're gone and then you take over. And I think it's exactly not that. That's why in our work, we always say it's a journey, not an event, because it's so many things over time. And you're already hinting on like the immense amount of things that you have to learn and will continue to be able to learn probably for the rest of your life from your dad about all of this is immense. How are you kind of documenting and finding things to continue learning about from him? Because it can sometimes feel like this like big ocean of like, holy crap, how am I ever going to know and learn all of these things?
No, it really is. We have kind of my sister and I have kind of approached this in a twofold system. So one is the more regimented things, like things that occur frequently that, okay, this happens all the time. Let's sit down and have a meeting on, okay, what is this process? How should we do this? How do you think about this? And better understanding what those systems look like. The other bucket is ad hoc. And when these ad hoc things come up, I actually have a note on my phone that I just continue to add them to. And my dad, sister, and I meet weekly to discuss these random ad hoc things. And kind of you asking this question and me thinking about this in the last 10 seconds, it feels like the ad hoc bucket is actually where most of the learning has taken place. which I'm actually a little bit surprised about, but it's more of the random things that come up, and sitting with my dad and seeing how he thinks about things. And in many times it's great. And that's the way that I want to think about it and make decisions from it.
Mm-hmm.
In other times I question him and push back a little bit because it's, I maybe not understanding it correctly, or I am understanding it correctly. And actually maybe there's a new way to do this. So, I think that's how we've been going about the process. It hasn't been incredibly regimented, but I think it's really working for the three of us for now.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to come back to the how do you bring in fresh ideas, but also honor the legacy and that thing in a second. There was something you mentioned in that, which made me think of one of the tools that we use with a lot of our clients. And that's having the current owner actually write out all the roles and responsibilities and things that are inside their head. And then also putting against that, is it something they really enjoy or something that maybe they don't actually enjoy that much? Because then as a successor, you can look at that and you can say, oh, hey, you actually don't really enjoy doing that thing. I would be interested in learning more about that thing. And it can open some of those other pathways, right? When people feel stuck. But it sounds like you and your family are doing a good job at kind of being malleable and moving around as things come up, which is really awesome.
We try to be. I think initially my sister and I did ask my dad to please come up with a list of all the things. And he kind of flipped the script on us and asked us to do that. So what we decided to do instead was every week we would document the things that he was doing. And exactly to your point, we said, you know what, you don't need to be approving capital calls anymore. Like that is absolutely something that I can do. It's not bringing you any joy. It's just a nature of the beast. So that's something that easily has moved on to my plate. And there's several things that are similar to that. So we try, it doesn't always work as well as I have it planned in my head, but we try.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see when you reach a point, because obviously you're young. You guys haven't been in the business for a super long time, but you will probably, and I know there's other people listening to the podcast, they like have been in the business 15, 20 years. And it's like, they are actually ready now for like let's start to flip the switch on more. And when is the right time to really have those discussions, and how do you help kind of facilitate that discussion? And it's really hard. It can be really hard, but also really freeing. We have this concept of transition 3.0. I don't know if you've heard of there's that Wealth 3.0 book, which is a great book. And it's about how wealth advising has really changed over time. So we just made our own version. Transition 1.0 was when the parents would go to the lawyer and make the estate plan. And then when they died, someone would show up with the piece of paper and read off what was happening, right? And then there's transition 2.0, where they would work on the will and everything would be buttoned up. And then they would kind of share it with the next gen to make sure they kind of knew what was going to happen, but it wasn't really up for discussion. And transition 3.0, where we're really trying to move everything, is how can the next generation, who's going to be the stewards of this into the future and be sitting with it and owning it longer, probably for the rest of their lives, than the current generation, how do you participate as equal designers in the future of the business and what that transition looks like? So I think it's a really interesting place and concept to think about, because also as a successor, you never want to say like, I think we should do X, Y, Z, when you know that, especially, I don't know, I think second gen is really hard, especially because your parents were like the people who brought it to this pinnacle. But there is always a place for fresh ideas and new things. So to you, what does that look like? How do you navigate like innovation and bringing in new ideas and all the things that you learned in business school and from your previous career? How do you navigate bringing those new things in while also honoring kind of the legacy of everything before you?
Yeah, I would say it's been a journey for me, in the sense that only recently have I been mature enough to say, okay, this is a hill I'm not going to die on. This is just simply not that important. We can come back to this. And I think before, I would say even 1 year ago, I would butt heads a lot with my dad. I would say we have similar ways of doing things, and consequently we would butt heads when there was a disagreement in kind of theory. So that's been the first step. I think me understanding, okay, yes, this is something I'm going to fight for. It's important that I get my voice across, or no, it's not. It's really not important.
Yeah.
Then taking that to the next phase, I think because I've been more, a little bit more judicious with what I'm, quote, fighting back with, then my dad is much more open to hearing when I am vocal about wanting something to change. He's like, oh, okay, she must actually believe in this one item. So, you know, there have been a few things, especially from like a people perspective. I mean, my parents have not been employees for 35 years. And sometimes I reiterate that to them, and I say, you guys don't know what it's like to work in a company. You are, you know, they are owners, and you come in with this mindset, which is amazing. And that's how they grew this. But we also support all of the associates and employees that we have. And it's just a different way of thinking that I don't think they always empathize with. So I think those are hills that I die on. And it has come across really well with previous work experiences, or to your point, things I've learned at business school that I'm able to speak to specifically. And I think helping bring in those data points, specific items that I either want to change, or data behind why I want to change it, that goes a long ways. Sometimes it works, and sometimes I still don't necessarily convince them of my way. But I have found that when my sister and I are a united front, that also goes a long way.
Ooh, yeah, that's a really interesting learning. And I think really smart to just say, okay, there was a point in time or a place where I would have just tried to push through everything, but now I'm going to be really clear on what are those things that are most important that I want to make the biggest case on. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. Yeah. Okay.
It took a lot of time.
Yeah, it does. It does. So your parents are having fun. They like
They
what
are.
they're doing. You and your sister are having fun. Like, what are you guys feeling about what's coming up in the future? And are you having conversations about that?
We are. I think we're always having conversations about that, which is a good thing. But at certain points, I'm like, wait, things are going well. Let's just let's just let it ride.
Yeah.
But we are having discussions about, you know, things are going well right now. Do we want to continue the status quo for the next 5 years? You know, I would like to have more kids. So what does that look like with my time commitment? And understanding, you know, you're living a life as well as operating your family business. So I think, how do these two things go in concert? So my very long-winded, I guess, answer to your question is we do have discussions about it.
Yeah.
They evolve.
Are there any tools or resources that you're using to kind of help you? Because I think you totally hit it right. And I'm thinking about a lot of the same things, even being a successor inside the transition strategist, which is I am in this season of growing my family, and there are other life things. And I have a lot of things I want to do that are not just the business that I'm thinking about how that fits into the landscape of my life. And are there any specific tools or things that you found that are helpful for thinking about that?
You know, I think I haven't found any specific tools. However, I think these family meetings that we have do provide a really good structure to some of these conversations. I think sometimes the way that I think about it is, what do I want from my nuclear family? So my husband and my daughter, and how can I wrap that up into what the family wants as a whole?
Yeah.
And what I'm realizing is that family offices are a tool, and the best way to be personally successful in kind of every aspect of your life is to leverage that tool to help work for you. So, is there something in the family office that can help me with this new investing project I want to do, or this, other organization we want to give to in our foundation? So I think for the longest time, from growing up to college, even I would say the last 5 years or so, I wasn't leveraging the family office as a tool. It was always this thing that I kind of kept at arm's length in the sense that I didn't want people to know about the family office. And I was shy about it, embarrassed about it, whatever. And I think recently I'm starting to realize that this is such an amazing group of people and group of resources that I really should leverage more.
Yeah, I love that. And that is a big and really hard shift to kind of like acknowledge that and hold like the gratitude for it and recognize the privilege of it, but also say, because I'm here, I'm going to figure out how to leverage this into the best thing that impacts and ripples and affects so many other communities and families beyond just my nuclear family. And that is a huge pressure of being a next gen.
It really is. I recently read, this is a very specific example, but I recently read Shonda Rhimes's book, Year of Yes, and it's the 10th anniversary of it. So I decided to read it. And I just thought she did a really great job of articulating, like, you want to work, you need to work. It's like this inherent thing in your body. And I felt very similarly to that. But I have this family and this child that I'm obsessed with, and I want to spend equal amount of time with her. And those two things don't add up. So how do you create a life in which you get both of them? And it's possible, but it takes time and effort and a lot of focus. So that's my parting thought on that.
I love that. And I'm going to send you a copy of our objectives matrix tool, which we use with all the families. That the reason I was poking a little bit on, like, how are you guys kind of tracking what's important to you? Because sometimes in families, we have these like little bit esoterical conversations around like, this is important to me and this is important to me. And in theory, we know. But if there is a structured tool where we can sit down and we can all say, these are the things that are important to me. And actually, these are deal breakers, meaning if I can't have any more kids or I can't go home and spend time with my daughter, then I'm not interested in pursuing that. It's a no.
That's really interesting
idea. And we use that with all our families. So I'll get you a copy of that.
I would love that. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, hey, this has been a really fun conversation. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you were hoping to share with the listeners?
My sister and I were at our alma mater a couple months ago, and we gave this talk to all the freshmen. And one of the questions that kept coming up was working with your family. And I think my takeaway with working with my family is I get to see, specifically my sister, I get to see her in a light I never would outside of this opportunity. So I think it's a beautiful thing. It takes a lot of effort. I joke with my husband all the time, just about, he's always like, be more patient with your sister, like chat through it. So I joke with him that, can you do this with your siblings? So it takes time, it takes effort, but it's such an incredible experience to get to see your sibling thrive in a professional landscape. So I'm super grateful that I get to share that experience with her.
Yeah. And I know we didn't touch too much on your next generation today, but the ability to kind of provide a space and think about what that legacy looks like into the next generation. I don't know if you have any closing thoughts on that either.
Yeah, I think kind of to my previous comment, I want my daughter to see me work. I want that for her if that's what she wants. And I love the fact that I get to be a working mom and I get to bring her to the office. So it's great for now. I mean, she's 10 months old, so I don't know what she really absorbs, but the the fact that we can kind of start this this next journey together, I'm really proud of.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks, Ashley, for coming on. Let's do our closing 3 questions.
Oh, yes.
All right. What have you chosen not to inherit?
So I thought about this a lot. I've chosen not to inherit guilt, and I don't do a very good job with it. But I'm really trying. I think there's a lot of, my parents are immigrants. I think there's a lot of kind of guilt that's put on children of immigrants, whether that's kind of connecting with our Indian culture or how hard we work or whatever it might be. And I think what I'm trying to focus on is to kind of live a little bit more guilt-free and not second guessing all the choices and things that I make.
I love that. And what's a part of your story that you're learning to honor right now?
Motherhood, which has its struggles, but I think anyone, you obviously can relate to this super closely, but it's the best thing, the hardest thing, it's the biggest thing. So that's what I'm doing right now.
I totally get that. I'm only 6 months ahead of you, 16 months. All right. And then lastly, in one word, what are you the first of in your family?
This one was really hard for me. Kind of a weird answer, but I think I'm kind of the first like project manager. I feel like sometimes I settle everyone down, organize our thoughts together, provide the perspective of, okay, this is how we look internally. This is how we look to our Copford team. This is how we look externally. So project manager / PR is what I would say for the first in my family.
Interesting. Yeah, I love that. And it's important to know what everyone's role is, right, in a family, especially if you have 2 very visionary founding parents, right? And it's probably only natural, right, that the world gives them someone who can kind of harness that and put it into some type of plan and action. And excited to continue cheering you on as you guys continue to grow this and navigate your journey. So.
Well, thank you so much. This was a really cool opportunity. I've never done anything like this before, so I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so fun. And to all the listeners, remember everyone's story is so unique and special, and everyone, even people who have family offices and parents who have big exits, or if you're in an operating company, like many of the businesses we help, being a next gen is a very unique experience. And that's why this space exists for you. So hope today brought you a little clarity, and a little bit of hopefully feeling seen, like you're chatting with a friend. So thanks everyone for listening in, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
That's it for today. I hope today's episode offered some clarity or at least a little company. If this resonated, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with another next gen. While my podcast is for the successors, you can also check out its sister show, The Business Transition Roadmap, hosted by my business partner, Elizabeth Ledoux. There's lots of great material in business and family succession over there. I hope you'll take a listen. Be well, and see you next time.